Good afternoon, and welcome to MOCS Brown Bag Lunch Series. This month, we will be focusing on diversity in government. Let's go ahead and dive in. April is Diversity Month. It's a time to recognize and celebrate the beauty of our unique cultures, backgrounds, and traditions. We would like to welcome our guest panelist speakers. We have on our right, Yesenia Markman. She's our Chief Change Officer here at MOCS. We have Maria Osario, our Chief Diversity Officer here at MOCS, and our esteemed guest speaker, Katie Ann Otar. She is the Executive Director of Citywide Equity and Inclusion at DCAS. Yesenia, going back over. Yesenia has approximately 10.5 years in city government, 2 years as a teacher before heading over to DYCD and now MOCS. Fun fact about Yesenia, not only is she a Brooklyn native, but she's a huge foodie and a lover of music, dance, and travel. Maria has approximately 23 years in city government. I know. She most recently worked as the Deputy Chief Operating Officer and MWBE Officer at DYCD, but has experience with DEP, SBS, and DEP. Fun fact about Maria, she used to, I'm gonna say it, she used to shark dive. Yeah. Okay. All right, and Katie Ann. She worked in recruitment for 13 years and with DEI for 3. Fun fact about Katie Ann, she is a Bronx native and she loves the snow, but hates the cold. I hope you see the question mark. All right. Okay, so first we're gonna start with some of the questions from the audience. As attendees register, they were given the opportunity to submit some questions. So, first, how have you used diversity in a way that supports your career goals? Whomever. Here we go.
Okay. I would say in terms of diversity, it's, in my career goals, I was always aware. And I think first, in terms of being in different spaces, you have to be aware of your advantages and disadvantages. Because if you're not aware of your disadvantage, how can you use it to your advantage? So for me, especially in spaces where I knew were male dominant, being the lovely, colorful female that I am, I would challenge them. And it's kind of hard when you call someone out on something, whether they believe it, they want to or not, they tend to kind of fall back. So for me, I would really make a loud noise, be like, I'm the only girl. I'm noticing that I don't have access, but all of you have access. So whether or not they wanted to give me or grant me access, I then got access. Yeah. Because sometimes it's easier to just acquiesce than make a bigger fuss. The problem is that once you do that, though, you also have to show others the way and make space for others coming alongside and behind you.
Yes, similar experience. With me, it wasn't that when I started my career I was one of the only women. I was actually one of the only people of color. So I started my career actually in Boston before I came back to New York City. And it was not diverse at all in relation to ethnicity. And I was really excluded from activities and events and conversations that the other professionals in my level were doing. So I actually was really aggressive and kind of forced my way into the discussion, forced my way into the events. And they realized we were not different in any way, but they were just looking at me and had an idea that I was not like them, even though I had the same education and experience and was bringing the same type of knowledge to the table. So you kind of have to be a little forceful, but it takes a lot. Not everyone can be that way. You really have to have a level of confidence and know that you belong in the room and belong at the table and actually use that to your advantage and be very vocal, but in a professional way. I was always very polite and friendly and show them that, we're on the same team.
Thank you.
For me, it's the opposite. I did not have a drive to go into DEI. I fell into it. As a person that has a hearing disability, I was never comfortable with that. I was a person that's sitting in the room, in class, in the front, and the teacher's calling my name, and I'm being marked absent because I didn't hear, just because I didn't want to get the hearing aids, just because I didn't want people to know. And being forced to, if I want to succeed in school, then this is something that I need. And then going on to my first job in recruitment, I had a boss that was really very helpful in letting me see that, no, you need to show up, and this is how you can show up. So it's saying before I left, they always encouraged me because I was not a great speaker. I used to go to Toastmasters, read this book, do this. And when I left there after 4 years, he said, make this your platform. Make your disability your platform. And little did I know I was coming into a role where it did eventually become my platform. In whether it's recruitment, because we were tasked with going out to diverse communities and letting them know about jobs within city government. I kept engaging individuals who had similar disabilities for me. Usually I would go, and anywhere they place me, I'll sit in the back of the room, or I need to sit here, but I didn't know how to ask for what I needed. And little by little, I know now to say, I need you to use the mic. The mic is not for you, it's for me. I need to be placed in front of the room. I need X, Y, and Z, and allowing other folks to ask for the things that they need and letting them know that it's okay, respectfully, right? There's a process for everything to ask for those things. So it's kind of like fell into it in that way.
That's very impactful. I think maybe like sticking with Ukrainian, what is your definition of diversity and inclusion? And why is it important to you? You touched on it, but let's lean into it a bit.
Thank you. Diversity, there are a lot of different definitions, and I've heard it. Diversity is, inviting somebody to the party, and the inclusion is asking them to dance. I've heard the story, which I think resonated with me, of a group of friends. They always celebrate their birthdays when it's in the summer. They're celebrated by, pushing somebody in the pool. So if it's your birthday, we're celebrating you by pushing you in the pool. And there is a person among the group that has a disability, and so because of his disability, he usually doesn't get pushed into the pool. And so for him to be included in all of the activities that his friends get to do, he wants to be pushed in the pool. Like, push me in the pool. That's the way that you include me. And so for me, I take it in regards to the way that diversity shows up in my life, in my work, is if you are thinking about including me in things, knowing of the disability that I have, yes, invite me to happy hour. No, don't take me to a bar where it's very loud. And so thinking about all of these different ways and seeing how the impact that it can have on people, just saying, not just come along and include me, but bringing them to a place where they can feel included, that they can bring their full self, regardless of what that is. So that's how it shows up for me.
For me, it's for the definition for diversity and inclusion for me, one is recognizing that as much as we can be different, we can be the same, and we all have different perspectives depending on how we grew up, where we grew up, how we were educated, and everyone has an idea or something that can impact whatever we're discussing or doing. So definitely ensuring that, the more voices you have at the table, the better the conversation is. And in inclusion, it's recognizing individuals who may not always be vocal or come to the front or take over meetings and discussions, and making sure that their voice is heard. In one of my old agencies, I used to have weekly team meetings, and I made the decision that I'm not leading it, I'm picking someone different every week who has to prepare the agenda and lead the discussion. I'll support you and work with you and help you, but I want everyone to have a voice and have that experience in taking the lead, in leading the discussion, and being part of the discussion. Because some of the smartest people in the room with the best ideas are the quiet ones in the corner that don't have the confidence to come forward. And you, as leaders and managers, colleagues, you want to help your fellow workmates come forward and share what they have to share with the rest of the team.
Well, you ladies didn't leave me much to say. No, but I think for me, not a dictionary definition, but in terms of diversity and inclusion, I see diversity as that there is a space and a place for everyone. And it's not that, and in terms of inclusion, it's not just about having one open invitation to all. It's really more so about, is it an appropriate way and manner in which you're including them so that they can fully participate, fully show up at work, at play, however it is that they want to show up. So diversity is that, yes, there are many voices that we all have, and there is a space for it. And inclusion is also thinking about who's not at the table, who may not want to come to the table, who's not comfortable coming to the table, but being mindful that there are people that are not at the table. And being inclusive, you have to think about the different ways of including those voices that may be absent so that their voice is heard. So that's how it shows up for me.
Nice. Don't turn it off. Yesenia, being the change agent that we know you to be, I'm interested. What advice would you give an individual on how to get their agency, their unit department on board with D&I initiatives?
I mean, it depends on, every agency is different, we understand that, but I think you have to start somewhere. So if someone's looking to start an initiative, you have to be aware of your atmosphere to determine what's your best entry point. Because if you're an organization that is male, top heavy, not many individuals of color, you're not going to want to launch an initiative be like, well, we want to see all women of color take over. You have to figure out what's the best entry point and play the long game, because diversity, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, it's not easy, there will be many pitfalls, and be prepared to fail. Because DEI means you're having uncomfortable conversations with people. You're doing things that is contradictory to the norm. It's against status quo. It's not about, we know what's right, what's wrong, but certain things just are and just is. And if you want to challenge that, you have to be mindful of your professional atmosphere, because you have to see what's the appropriate level of push. Because in terms of change, most people are not comfortable with change. So you have to kind of pace yourself and start small and gradually build up to that overarching goal for DEI. So you might have a more ambitious DEI goal, but if you take a poll, you take a sense that, you know what, that's not gonna fly. And sometimes for me, progress is better than nothing. And if you're looking for perfection, you wanna completely change the culture overnight, that's not gonna happen. So progress to me is the enemy of perfection. You're not gonna get perfect, but make those small steps, but be mindful.
It'll definitely work implementing those initiatives when you have buy-in. You want to definitely include the folks in your office to understand what it means, to definitely recognize what changes are being made and what makes sense for the environment. Again, every office is different. And people have to remember that diversity doesn't just mean recognizing people of color. It's recognizing who's not currently included and who needs to be brought to the table. One example that I had shared with the exec team in our discussions previously is, at one of my old offices, our general counsel office was super diverse in religion, ethnicity, age, but they were all women. Our general counsel was not comfortable hiring women. So when it came for an opportunity, we spoke to her. We said, look, we're not gonna tell you who to hire on your team, but you have to look at who can bring a different voice to the table and still be a great part of your group. And she hired a white male lawyer, and that was diversity for that unit. It really depends the environment you're in, and you want to really think about that.
I think it was already said, but mostly it's knowing what diversity means for that, because diversity shows up differently. It may not be we need to get people of color. It may not be we need to get more women in the room. It may be different things. And the buy-in is important because it's not a one-person job. And it's not a one-time job. It is continuous. So you want to make sure that there is a clear understanding and definition of what diversity means for the overall company, but also for the individual areas that you're going to tackle. And so getting the buy-in is absolutely important, because depending on your role, you definitely want leadership who's able to carry out that message. Because you can only go so far, and you want to know that there are people in your corner that is going to help to push that message forward and for the long haul too.
Thank you all. We're actually going to step into a part of the session where the question is going to be specific to you. So I'll ask a question that is your question. All right? All right. So just kind of like piggybacking off of what we're already on, I think all of you spoke on the fact that like diversity and what the needs of the group is specific to the group. I don't know if anyone else has realized, but we have an all-female panel. Not because, people weren't extended the offer, but because, these are the people who decided to step. So my question is, how do we get or encourage individuals to kind of like step forward? So for example, this originated as like a women in government. So when we asked men, hey, would you like to speak on our diversity panel for the women in government backlash? They're like, no, thank you. So what would your advice be? Oh yeah.
So, yes, extend them the invitation. It's explaining what that role could be. It is making it comfortable for them, making it open, making them aware that your participation is going to help to provide XYZ perspective. Not charging them with leading a part of it. Right? So because they are the only diverse person that's going to be on that panel, they feel like, okay, there's something that I have to do to push this forward. But it's making that space as comfortable for them so that they want to raise their hand, show them the different types of activities that will be done. And I've had the same challenge where I'm running a panel like this and I say, okay, I have a list of all this. I need you to be engaged in it. And that is always the response, because that's what they see. Oh, it's an all XYZ panel, but your perspective would be helpful to the audience that we're speaking to. So here's what we think you can add. Here's the value. Right? People want to know how they're adding value. So here's the value that you can add if you choose to participate in this thing. If you don't, it's okay, but here's what we really want you to do, because we find that it's valuable for you.
Nice. Wow. Thank you. Okay. Maria. Yes. Thank you again. You have 23 years in city government and a few agencies under your belt. So I would like to know what barriers to D&I have you noticed within the city, or what are the barriers that limit our ability to be diverse and inclusive?
Well, city government is very interesting. It's a kind of a double-edged sword. We have the civil service process, which really mandates the majority of positions within agencies. But when we look at more senior level and positions in the mayor's office, which are not through civil service, but actually through experience and education, and really looking at networking, the importance of networking, which I still am a horrible networker, to put it lightly. It's amazing what relationships, how growth and opportunity really comes through relationships. I've noticed in all my agencies, specifically DEP was one of the toughest ones, because I worked in a very technical environment, and because of that, and at the time period, I mean, it was more than a few decades ago that I started in this field, we're not gonna count, it wasn't as diverse. So I was very limited in those personal relationships, and again, because of the assumptions made about who I am, where I came from, was a lot of limitations in the building committee. And it was kind of part of the reason why, after being in the physical sciences for just over a decade, I actually changed direction, because I found a lot more opportunities in other areas. And it kind of put my career in a kind of bend, and realize that in certain environments, who you know and who you connect with really makes a huge difference. I was doing a lot of work groups when I first joined the mayor's office years ago, and the people that I was meeting in other agencies and organizations kind of opened the door to opportunities in other agencies. And again, it's relationships, and I think that's part of the challenge with DE&Is. It's not just about being brought to the table and being part of the conversation, but there's a lot of relationship building that kind of dominates where you go in government.
Wow, thank you. Okay, so this question actually came from an audience member, and I found it interesting, so I would really love your input on this. How do you respond when people suggest that DEI programs promote hiring practices that are not merit-based? Yeah.
I mean, it's the whole, it's a lifelong argument. And I think when people say that, I challenge them to think of, do you truly fully understand what DEI is? Because it's not a handout for any particular race, gender, creed, or sexual orientation. What it is making sure that they have an opportunity. And if you were at the top of your game, you wouldn't mind a little competition, or would be no competition. So if I were to sign up for something, and it was like, oh, it's only white men, or it's only Asian boys or children, it's not about eliminating. So when people hear DEI, they think you're giving someone a handout or an upper hand. It's not. It's actually kind of leveling the playing field in the sense of enabling them to have the same opportunities that other individuals are participating in. So this is an argument that I have often. I've participated in shouting matches. I've forbid myself from arguing with people on social media. I'm no longer allowed to do that. So I'm practicing, but I think it's something that it's all about perception.
Yeah.
So a huge part of it is that you have to build awareness and inform people of what the true intentions and purpose of DEI is. And I find that those that are participating in those types of arguments truly don't understand what it is. And sometimes you can get across to them, but sometimes ignorance is ignorance. And people don't want to understand. And again, it also means, for some, it's change. And I always tell people, anytime you're asking someone in power who has authority to see your authority, you're going to have a problem. I don't care where you are. If my child was to ask him to see my authority, we're going to have a problem in my household. So just understanding that you're asking someone to fundamentally shift how they think, how they move, how they act, what they have access to, what they can do. And we're human, and I get it, because everyone, as human first, you're thinking about what you're getting, what you can have, and what you may lose. And I think it's really about enabling people to understand that let's not have a deficit-based mentality. It's not a deficit. You're not losing anything. But how much more powerful is it to find out that there is a whole section of individuals, people that you've never even thought to engage with, that can help to further what you're doing if you just invited them in. So, I mean, it's an argument. It's not something that's going to change overnight, but it's an argument that's worth having, that we have to continue to have until this becomes more tongue-tied, systemic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was very powerful. Hashtag no more deficit mentality, right? Like, that was really good. I think a lot of what you all have said like really resonates with like me as well. You know, it's not only creating a space at the table, but creating a space for them to, I don't know, like take in the knowledge that you've given them, right? You give them the resource, you give them the opportunity, and you allow them the space to say, okay, like this is the thing I can get behind. This is so great. Before we head into some audience questions. So for those in person and those on the live stream, and I have some more here as well, we just want to jump into an icebreaker question. Fun times, fun times. So everyone, whoever wants to answer can answer. You can all answer, up to you. Would you rather fulfill your biggest wish or resolve your biggest regret?
I would say fulfill my biggest wish. I truly believe everything happens for a reason. So my experiences, positive or negative, they all brought me to who I am today. You know, some of the bad things in life make you stronger, make you rethink your actions and your perspectives. And I think I don't want to change anything. I just would prefer to go for the big wish.
Yeah. Oh, it's up to you if you want to answer. Yeah. Oh, you want another one? Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next one then. Would you rather have an extra day each week or have 2 extra hours each day?
I am going to take the day, because if you give me 2 extra hours, that means I will be at work for 2 extra hours. I want the day, put away the phone, put away everything. I can go to the beach, I can go for a longer weekend trip. Give me the extra day, because I know at least if I'm already caught up with work, I'm like, okay, I have 2 hours, I'm gonna stay behind and finish this thing. Give me the day, I'll take that.
I love it.
I have a qualifying question. Is the extra day like a free day? Because if they want this day for work, I don't want that day.
No, it's your day to do what you please.
Oh, okay, so I'm gonna take the day. I just wanted to be clear here. So I'm taking the day.
Valid question. Okay, so we're gonna do one more and then head over. Okay. If you could hang out with any cartoon character, who would you choose and why? Yeah.
So I will hang out with Tom and Jerry.
Oh yeah.
They are fun. They are secretly best friends.
They are.
They are looking out for each other. Tom knows that if he catches that mouse, he is, Jerry knows that if Tom stays around, then he's not going to catch Tom. Jerry knows that Tom cannot catch him because Tom is just, showing up to show up. He wants to go out and eat and hang around, and so they do the little chase scenes. They run after each other, and then you look around the corner and they're sharing a dessert together and they're having fun. So I want that kind of excitement, so I will hang out with Tom and Jerry.
That's so fun.
I'm going with the genie. I need some wishes, a flying carpet. I mean, they're fictitious and this is a dream. Me and the genie, I got 3 wishes.
Oh, so you have your 3?
I have my 3 wishes. It's set.
I love it. Okay.
But wait, you don't get the wishes though. You get to grant the wishes.
No, I am not the genie. I am hanging with the genie.
That's your bestie. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open up to the audience. We have room for, I'm going to take 3 questions before we get back to the scripted questions. Does anyone from the audience have something they'd like to ask? All right, and from live. Okay, here we are. Was there ever a point in time you lacked confidence while being in a leadership role, especially as a woman of color? If so, what advice can you give young women, to build up that confidence, or was it something innate?
All the time, including my current role. No, I think there's nothing wrong with being a little uncomfortable and really finding your way in any new role. I mean, I've changed roles multiple times in government, so I feel like I'm always starting new, like every 5 years there's something fresh. But I think it's good to challenge yourself. It's good to take that step forward, learn something new, learn from others. Don't be afraid to ask for support from your fellow leaders. You're not the only one. Your experience is always different with not only where you work, but who your staff are and the challenges that you experience with different staff. So there's nothing wrong with feeling a little bit of nervousness or less confidence, but actually do the work, communicate, always learning. I'm always learning. I don't think you can ever stop learning because every experience is different and every environment is different. And I think don't be afraid to speak up and ask for help and ask for support. I think that's the most important thing. When I started my career back in the day, I was not someone to ask for help. I was trying to figure things out on my own, and you have to step out of that. You know, you can only grow from learning and realizing that there are people out there who want to work with you, want to support you, and will help you in your journey. I think it's very important that there is people out there to support you.
I think this question it's such a poignant question, and most people aren't honest about it. And I think most people in leadership positions, either early on, later in your career, there are opportunities or times when you do feel that you lack confidence, and sometimes the negative perception or what people may be thinking about you might keep creeping. And if anyone ever heard they say imposter syndrome, that's very real. And I think a part of it is acknowledging it. And for me, I mean, I've experienced it in the past. And similar to what Maria would say, I would take it a step further. Find a mentor. Because sometimes you can be your own worst enemy. And that confidence, you can erode your own confidence. But how you can counteract that is finding a mentor and building a supportive network. Because then you need someone pouring into you while sometimes you're kind of taking away at yourself. And one of my favorite life lines that I live by is that give yourself grace. Because there are going to be moments in time when you don't feel perfect. There are going to be moments in time when you're overconfident, and you probably shouldn't be. But it's one of those things that you just have to give yourself grace and truly be authentic with yourself. And for me, I'm more open and someone is willing to share. If I'm feeling self-confident or I don't feel like I can do it or whatever, I'm gonna say it, because for me, calling it out kind of takes the power away from it. Sometimes what you're thinking and what you fear or dread most, what you're thinking is far worse than the reality majority of the time. It's not always the case. But for me, having a mentor when I really doubted myself, was the best thing that I could have done. And having a support network, because there are people that are around you that are looking up to you that you don't even know. People that are cheering for you that you have no idea. So while you're looking in the mirror, it might be like, oh, this is not my day, this might not be the position for me. And guess what? It is the position for you because you're in it. And you can make of it what you make of it. So even if you're feeling you lack the confidence, you can learn, you can develop skills, find someone to help you. But if you have that weak moment, definitely a mentor or a supportive network.
Thank you. I have been fortunate enough to be around folks that build me up when I'm down. So whether I've had leaders that as they strongly believe in me and the work that I can do when I didn't believe. And they do it, and they don't just say it, they show it. Oh, I'm adding you to this thing because I know you can do it, but I can't. Oh, you can, and here's how you're gonna do it. And I'll be here to support you if you need it. And so I've been fortunate to be around those environments, and I know some people aren't, and so it's about building that, getting that, whether it's through a mentor, whether it's through the groups that you join, whether it's through your coworkers and friends. And I have, I try to build it on both levels. I have people, when I know I'm not feeling so great, I call them up and they tell me how great I'm doing, because they know sometimes you're a little bit harder on yourself than you really should be. So having somebody in your corner that can kind of help to build that up. And also, sometimes I look in the mirror, I'm like, you got it.
There we go.
You can do this, right? You know your stuff. You've been doing this for XYZ years. You got it. Now go do it.
Yeah.
And so that is helpful because maybe sometimes you don't have that next person to lean on. And it's figuring out how you can also lean on yourself, how you do that self-check to get you back and say, no, you got it. You can do it. Let's go.
A word. Okay. If you could tell young Kadian, give her a message, what would that be?
Oh my gosh. That message would be, tell people you have a disability because you wouldn't have to be suffering taking notes in the back of class. You wouldn't have to be suffering with the student loans because there are scholarships for that. There would have been so many opportunities that would be open to you if you just get comfortable with who you are and speak about it. And I see now when I interact with different folks that come around and it's like, hey, do you know this is available to you? This is available to you. So because nobody told me. My mom didn't know. You know, it's not something that a lot of people, unless you're really engaged in that community, you won't know. And then by the time I realized it was a little bit too late for younger me. But my job is to go out into the community, diverse community, and talk about city government and city jobs, but also saying like, hey, here's an opportunity for you. You need to look into this. You can develop more, grow more if you know that these opportunities are available to you. So I may not be able to do it for myself, but I can do it for other people.
No, you're good.
What I would tell little Maria, don't be afraid to challenge yourself. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't think an approach you're always gonna fail when you don't. And definitely build those relationships of people you meet along your journey. I've met great people in my earlier years that I lost connection, didn't know how to keep in touch, didn't know how to build that relationship, and it was a loss. I could have definitely done more and grown and done a lot quicker in my career because getting to this role was very slow for me in government. Just because I didn't have those networking and connections and opportunities to really grow quickly. And I think just having the confidence to talk to people and build those relationships and not be afraid to ask for help when you need it would have definitely changed the trajectory of my career.
What would I tell little Jasenia? Let's see. I think what I would say is they're wrong. They're wrong, and keep fighting. As you can, if you haven't figured that out, I'm very much of a fighter. But I think if I knew how right I was, and it's just more so that people, they look at you and they determine who they think you are and what you can do. And if I fought harder, quicker, I would have gotten further. But no regrets. So if I were to say that they're wrong, keep doing what you're doing.
Alright. Let's stay with little Jasenia. She's growing up. She started off at entry-level position, but she's fighting, right? That's what she does. What would you like? What would you have wished would have been in place at that time? Like, what DEI programs do you wish could have been implemented today or at the time?
Definitely professional development, but I think even at a minimum, just having an outlet. My first professional career was at a publishing house. I was a manufacturing assistant, and one of the only Afro-Latina girls in the organization, and they challenged me, but I was always book smart. So learning new processes and digital transformation was just, it wasn't a digital transformation. We were just stepping our toe in at that time, and I was able to grasp new concepts, but I was challenged daily. I mean, the things that they would say to me was like, oh, I didn't know black people tanned, or I literally had someone, a supervisor, a vice president, ask me, I would ask if you have implants, but your people don't do that. So at a minimum, for me, was that I didn't have an outlet. And I was very young, and I'm angry, I'm enraged and had nowhere to go. So I'm not even thinking about a program yet, but even at the very basic, for staff, there should be professional development, but beyond that, they must have an outlet because you have to create safe spaces in the workplace. And I absolutely didn't have that.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely.
Yeah.
And I was very angry when I was younger. I was not diplomatic. I wasn't very sweet in the beginning because of what was being said to me. And the things that weren't said was even worse. The looks, the ignoring me, things like that was just, I was a very angry person. And you definitely need an outlet. And I had, with family and close friends, but one professionally. Who had experienced it and known it, and those connections with other women of color, or people of color in general in the workplace just really wasn't there. People didn't talk to each other, didn't share their experiences, didn't have a support system, and that was very, very necessary.
I think it's more people talking about DEI. I didn't really get an understanding of DEI. I heard about it so much until I came to city government in 2015. I didn't know what rights I had. I didn't know there wasn't any training that was provided in this, in the space that I worked, whether it's in school or even, after I started working. And so if there are more people talking about it, saying, here's the training, here's professional development, but here are the rights that you have. And here are the avenues that you have to go through if things are not what they're supposed to be. If you're not given, or you're not having the access, or if you're not being able to communicate the things that you need to communicate, here are the things that you can do. So just knowing that earlier on would definitely save us a lot.
Yeah. D&I has definitely been like a hot topic discussion in the last few years. Why do you think it's more prevalent now than it was in the past?
I think because it's now being thrown into everybody's face. You cannot avoid it.
Yeah.
With all of the social justice movements that's happening, with those challenges that we're having with recruitment and retention. And so it's right now understanding that the impact that DEI and having good DEI programs and speaking about it can have on just your agency or your company, it's really what driving folks. And not only just the employer, because yes, they can profit from it, but the folks that are going into those new positions, when they have more choices now. So it is their time. So they can choose between 10 agencies, and what they're looking at the impact that they can have in the agencies, the work that they're doing. They're looking at, just like you're for folks that are really environmentally conscious, not buying things that doesn't, or shopping at places that doesn't focus on that. The same thing, they don't want to work for places that do not have a focus on DEI and how that shows up, because not only is it in their personal life, but if they're going to spend a bulk of their time at work, they want to know that that's showing up there as well. Oh, and the laws, lots of local laws.
Yeah, I think it's all social media. It's definitely in your face. Not only the positive of it, what things employers are doing, but the negative. So people are being really shamed for how they practice their business practices, how they treat their employees. Social media has really, really made things out there, and it's also made us aware who have been impacted by it negatively, that there's other folks like you who are experiencing the same things. What I experienced here in New York City, someone else was experiencing in California or in Ohio, and now with social media, you see it all, and it's definitely has changed the conversation.
I was definitely going to say the digital age brought about a great reckoning. because it's not as if though these things weren't happening for decades. I think because they were in pockets and no one else was aware, you got to feel that it was just you, or it's just isolated to this state or this city, this country. The digital age has made it so that you can't hide from it. It's making everyone uncomfortable, whether you want to address it or not. Your staff, the employers, the community, there's no way of escaping it. So it's kind of like we have to address it and in a meaningful way, because social media, all type of media, it's created a level of accountability that we've never experienced before.
Yeah. Okay, so, not me, but hypothetically, I'm a supervisor. I have those who are under me, we work every day. They sound different, they look different, they have different backgrounds. I don't need D&I. I don't, right? What would you say? What are the long-term consequences if we ignore or fail to recognize DEI at work?
We're not gonna have a workforce. I mean, it's as simple as that. Especially, I keep telling everyone, right now, post-COVID, it is an employee's market. The world is now open and they have access to working from anywhere. So if you choose to, whether it's DEI, if you choose to ignore issues that your staff members are having for whatever reason, you may just find yourself without staff.
It creates a negative work environment. You have employees who aren't going to be productive, don't want to be present. You're going to lose out on perspectives and opinions and skills from those individuals who can bring a lot to the table, but really don't want to work for you and don't want to be part of your team. So you really need to recognize who's in the room, who you're working with, what they can bring to the table, how they can better the organization, and really work with them and recognize that.
And also there's the external impact on your service delivery. If you work, especially for city government, you're serving the city and you're serving people with various backgrounds, you're serving people that are very diverse, and how are you developing programs to tackle LGBTQ community when you don't really understand what their needs are, when they come to you for services, they don't see themselves in that. And so it's not just the impact on being able to retain and hire and retain employees, but also in how you deliver service and how you are able to write policies and programs that are really going to be effective for the community that you're trying to serve. And when you're in city government, we work with the city of New York. We need to be as reflective of the city that we serve within our workforce. So that's definitely something to look at.
It is April Diversity Month, and as we start to wrap up, as we close out, if you can impart something on the group, if you had to say, this is my message and this is what I would like you to take away from this, what would that be? Yes.
Be respectful of your work environment, be respectful of your colleagues, recognize that everyone here serves a purpose, is a positive to your team, a positive to your organization, and work together. You realize how much you can accomplish when you're more welcoming of who's in the room than exclusive.
Yes, I think to piggyback from that, I always tell my daughter, you treat everyone the way you want to be treated, which I think that is a fundamental human principle that can address DEI and every other one of the isms that are out there. You show up and treat people the way you want to be treated. Because if you were to do that, the same way you want to be included, the same way you want to have access, you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to feel safe. That is the same thing that every human being wants. So if you show up every day and treat people the way you ought to be treated, Or I used to tell people, treat people the way you want them to treat your grandmother.
Yeah.
Those gentle gloves, how you would treat your grandmother, that's how you should treat other folks. And if we actually showed up nicer and kinder, it would address so many of the other underlying issues.
Thank you.
I think to add to that is also treating people how they want to be treated, right? So understanding what they need, what they want, what makes them feel included. But just be open. Be open to the conversation. Be open to the differences. Be open to the challenges. Be open to being wrong. Being open to talk about it. Being open to different perspectives, because it doesn't mean that your way of thinking is not right or their way of thinking is the best way. It just means that there's a difference in the way that people think about things. So just be open and have a conversation in a safe way.
Wonderful. Thank you, ladies, so much. For those who need it, be respectful, work together, have empathy, and be open to the conversation. I want to thank you all for coming today. Again, we have Kadian Otur, our Executive Director of Citywide Equity and Inclusion DCAS, Maria Osario, Chief Diversity Officer for MOCS, and Jasenia Markland, Chief Change Officer at MOCS. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, for those tuning in and those in the room, we again want to thank you. We will be sending around a form for feedback. We do read them, we do rely on them, we do take your feedback into consideration. See you again next month. It will be May, and we're going to be talking about service in government. Have a good evening.
Thanks, ladies.